Uh, this is imagine a child who grew up in a home where she was the oldest of three. She often felt the need to protect her younger siblings. Most of the time, I'd usually, when things started, take the younger ones off to another room and try to occupy them with playing with them or, something like that. And it helped, I think, but they still remembered. And it's like someone else said, you don't matter how young you are, these things are not forgettable. They're ingrained. And when things continued as we got older, they still knew. There was not a way to cover it up or protect them from it. She had moments that she huddled in a corner in fear when her mother hit at her or yelled. The stepfather drank, the parents fought. Both verbal and physical abuse went on in the home. Then when she went to school, she was teased and humiliated by her peers. During all this time, she tried to find some salvation somewhere, some peace. Her grandparents often took her to church when they could. When they couldn't, she would find a church herself. My grandmother, she's a Christian, and has always been my inspiration. She's the only one really that I can say really lives the life, and I try to be like her in that. She's not perfect. I'm by no means perfect, but yeah. I also wanted to say that she wasn't always able to take me to church because we did live in another state for 8 years and so forth. This is my story for several years, taking out when I was 16, near the end of my teenage years. In addition to everything, we struggled financially. We were never without our needs, but it hung over our heads that one day we might. I lived in Houston for 8 years. I had just begun at this age to hang out with people who drank and smoked pot. Trying to find acceptance, I think, is what that was about. I wasn't finding it anywhere else. I did these things with them and would stay out late. They lived in my neighborhood, so it was an available escape from my problems, too convenient. That only made them worse. I had some dear friends from school, but during my depression I was often in, I convinced myself nobody cared. Then came the day my family had to give up our home. We could not keep the payments. I think what made it easier for me was not only that I believed in a God, I'll get into that later, but also the fact that I understood the adult things that was going on, even at my tender young age, a young teenager even. I tended to understand the bigger picture. I understood that they weren't just being mean, they weren't just doing these things for no reason. I knew there was more going on. We moved back to Louisiana where nobody wanted to go, but we had family, and my mother had a friend there. My brother and I stayed with my grandmother. We went to church with her. I'd gone to youth conferences in the past and had gotten into contemporary Christian music. At this time, it helped me release some pain by crying, but I got no joy from the music. It was one night I was the last to go to sleep. I had my headphones on, curled up in a chair, and cried all alone. I heard a voice only I could hear saying, "I'm all you need." That was it, nothing more. I knew somehow it was God and what He was saying. I had looked to everyone and everything else to help me through things. People always let me down and were the ones to hurt me. So I decided to accept Jesus and the free gift that He gave. Now I realize it seems simple. I guess I always knew in my head, but I had not accepted in my heart what Jesus had done. I knew all the Sunday school answers. What was left for me personally was to make a commitment. That did not come easy for me. I still let others I hung out with influence me until I moved to Arkansas. I started going to Little Rock Church. It was around, I was around more people and couples my age. I saw the things I had really wanted all along. The couples were both eager to be at church and be involved together. Some were in ministry together in other countries in the past and now house church leaders. I feel and others expressed that they saw it too. I spiritually began to grow as I had never done. It was then that I met my husband, Kurt. The contemporary Christian music now gives me joy. Going to church now gives me joy. God has blessed me with my husband and my child, just as my prayers I had wanted. My husband is part of his parents' ministry they started 8 years ago. He is dedicated to it for as long as God allows it to be in operation. I have one thing lacking for me now, but now Jesus and my husband were my dearest friends. I think sometimes I still get lonely. I feel like most of the people I know now are nothing more than acquaintances. And I don't have a best friend. And that was due to me. When I was younger, going through the things that I did, felt like my only goal was to get married myself and have children of my own and, just get away from it all and start a different life for myself. I was never career-oriented. And so spending so much time with the guys and even getting involved with sin with them, having sex with this one and that one and not being married and getting so physically and emotionally attached to them, I put my friends on the wayside. I never devoted much time to my female friends and devoting myself to bonding with anybody, like that. So that was what that was about to me. God has begun to answer that prayer also. I have got back in touch with a few of my friends. I'll get into that one in a minute. Very recently I've reached 4 of my friends from high school, 2 of which have been with me during my hardest years in Houston. I have to say though, since I've written this, unfortunately it still hadn't quite turned out the way I wanted, because there is that different lifestyle between us. They're not Christians, and it's not that I don't want to be. It's just a natural thing. We just don't have the same interests, the same feelings about everything. I don't know. They just don't. They feel different. They just feel different. I don't know how to explain it. 2 of which have been with me during my hardest years in Houston. My parents who raised me and I have a real good relationship. I never thought that would happen. Being as this is supposed to be about abuse, and I haven't mentioned a lot about it, I will go into detail even if I have to make a second video on more specific events that I went through. I just recently met my biological dad for the first time, and during that time, he met his granddaughter. These are some of the ways that God has taken care of me since I truly committed my life over to Him during the time I moved to Arkansas. I had to obey God on a couple of issues, which was not easy because another person was involved each time, but we get rewarded when we obey and love God. Now, I don't know how long this movie has gotten, but I do want to go into a little detail for the sake of staying on topic. I do remember getting an argument with my mom one time because of what I wanted to wear to school or didn't want to wear to school. And the last thing that I recalled, my mother was charging at me with the metal broom or mop handle, and my sister screaming